have spent the entire day packing up like my whole life into cardboard boxes. I've packed up the entirety of my flat. Depending on when this goes up, which will hopefully be Saturday, I am moving today, even though it's my tomorrow. I have had a surprisingly decent reading month in terms of quantity. I will tell you the total of how many books I read in May at the end of the video. But I read quite a lot of books. Admittedly, a lot of them were very, very short. There were a few little black classics. In terms of quantity, bit hit and miss. The first novel I read in May was Kill the Boy Band by Goldie Moldavsky, and I had very, very mixed feelings on this book. This tells a story of 4 fangirls and their obsession with the boy band The Ruperts. They have like highest level fangirl boy band obsession with these guys, and they actually end up staying in the same hotel as them when the guys are doing a concert in their like city, and they end up kidnapping one of the guys in the band. Their night just totally spirals out of control and everything gets very dangerous and very manic, and that's basically the plot of the book. I was really excited to read this book because I thought it would be a really good YA book that would be really good at getting people who are reluctant to read into reading, and I definitely think it would get people to pick up a book when they normally wouldn't, but I had a lot of problems with this book. I thought a lot of the time it strayed into ridiculing fangirls, which is definitely not a good thing. And while this book did encourage some feminist thinking, it seemed to be shoehorned and forced in there, and also it didn't really practice what it preached. There was a lot of fat shaming in the book, and it's really glossed over incidents which could be considered sexual assault. This month I also read Unrivaled by Noelle, and again I also had very mixed feelings on this book. So Unrivaled starts with a prologue which features the disappearance of a young Hollywood star named Madison Brooks. Then flash back a month earlier and we meet the 3 main characters in this novel. These 3 characters are Tommy, Aster and Layla, and they all have their own motivations for entering a competition run by a man named Ira Redmond. This competition is basically to be a promoter for one of Ira Redmond's clubs, and they each have their own club to promote. The more popular your club becomes, the better and the more chances you have of winning the competition. And it's not just about the quantity of people you get into the clubs, but also the quality of people, and Madison Brooks is top of the list for A-list stars that you need to get into the club. The 3 main characters' lives become increasingly messy as they're involved with this and the lead up to Madison's disappearance. Like with Kill the Boy Band, I just don't really feel like I was the target audience for this book. It really didn't work for me. I found the writing somehow both sensationalist and dull. I didn't find the characters appealing. I wasn't interested in what happened to Madison. This book just left me with no desire to carry on with the series, which is a problem considering it is the first book in a series. It just felt very much like something that would be an MTV reality show, and that just really didn't appeal to me at all. But all was not lost with me and YA this month, as I read Geek Girl by Smale, and I enjoyed this so much. I think it was the first book I read after finishing my exams, and it was a great start because it was just so quick and easy and nice reading. It wasn't complicated, but it was still really fun and enjoyable. So Geek Girl is about a young girl named Harriet who is very, very clever. She knows lots of facts, but she's not very popular at school. In an unexpected turn of events, she ends up becoming a really popular and sought-after model. Going into this novel, I wasn't sure what to expect. I've read a lot of YA that was like, girl gets a makeover and becomes suddenly popular, but this was not a bad one of these. It was like really realistic and it seemed very honest. I thought Harriet was quite annoying at some points, but I think that's to be expected, and I think it was accurate to a young teenage girl who is just always spouting off facts. But genuinely, I found a lot of the facts she had quite interesting. I also really enjoyed reading about her father and her stepmother. I thought they were 2 really great characters. Also read a lot of poetry this month, probably because I needed stuff that was quite short. The first poetry collection I read in May was #poetry by Clive, and I really just didn't enjoy this collection. This is basically like modern day blackout poetry. And if you don't know what blackout poetry is, it is essentially when you get a page of writing, normally from a book or something, and you just start blacking out words. The words that you are left with that aren't blanked out are what you make your poem with. It's what you craft the poem with. And what Clive has done in this collection is he has taken selections of tweets and he has blacked out a lot of the words in that with like colourful dots, and then what's left is the poem. But I didn't really feel like it worked at all. I thought it was a nice idea and it was an exercise that I would like to use as a poet, but the end product in this collection just really didn't appeal to me. I also read Quarter Life Poetry by Samantha Jane, which I enjoyed a lot more. This was a really short collection. I think I must have read it in like 15 minutes at most. Such a fun collection, and I would recommend this to everyone, particularly girls who are like, in their quarter life is just a collection of poems made up of 4 lines which rhyme, and they are accompanied by a little doodle that Samantha Jane has done, and they are just so funny and so relatable. I was actually reading this on my phone and I took so many screenshots of the poems to send to my friends, like, oh my god, this is so me, oh my god, this is so us. Don't go into this collection expecting like literary genius or anything. It is just a really fun collection of poems, but I love poetry that is just fun and nice and super accessible. I also read Megan Beech's When I Grow Up, I Want to Be Mary Beard, and this is one of the few books that I can actually show you because I haven't packed it away yet. Megan Beech is a performance poet and she is currently a undergrad at I think it's King's College London, and this is the written version of a lot of her poems. It is an absolutely tiny collection, but it is jam-packed full of stuff, and I loved this collection so much. I will definitely reread this. It is full of feminism and other political elements and just kind of observations about life. You can definitely tell it's performance poetry when you read it, which I really enjoyed. There are a lot of fun rhymes in there. Again, something which I try and do in my own poetry. I already know that this is probably going to be in the bibliography for my dissertation. Next, I read Kiss by Polly Clark, and I really enjoyed this poetry collection, although I feel like I probably didn't devote enough time to it. This probably warrants a reread because I don't think I gave it the attention it deserved. These poems are about the creation of the self and life experiences in general. They are very honest, they are very intense. There's a lot of kind of animal imagery in here as well, which I really enjoyed. Polly Clark used to work in a zoo, which is like super unusual for a poet, and the way those influences come through in her poetry was really great. The only graphic novel I read in May was Nimona by Noelle Stevenson, and I felt like I was the only person that hadn't read this yet, and now that I have, I am so happy. If you somehow don't know about this book, it is about a girl named Nimona who goes to work as a sidekick with Lord Blackheart. It's kind of just about the crazy relationship between these two and what they get up to and how they influence and change each other's lives. Nimona has a superpower in that she can transform into any sort of animal and a lot of people. I was very surprised by the kind of emotional journey I was taken on with this graphic novel. There were a lot of like really touching and emotional moments, which were a great addition to the novel. Also, a big thank you to Eva from Fred Weasley Died Laughing for sending me Nimona and also the Megan Beech collection of poetry. I also read a couple of little black classics throughout the month, the first of which was The Nun of Murano, I think it is, by Giacamo Casanova. I'm sure you're all very familiar with the character or persona of Casanova, but this basically is an installment of his memoirs where he falls in love with a nun on the Venetian island of Murano despite already being involved with another one. I wasn't a massive fan of this, but it was a really nice, quick and easy read. The other little black classic I read was simply entitled The Suffragettes, and it was a number of letters, newspaper clippings, pictures related to the suffragette movement and the people involved in it. This was super quick and accessible, and I really enjoyed learning a bit more about the people involved with the suffragettes, although I did know a lot of the content already. But if you are trying to learn more about the suffragette movement, I would highly recommend this as a nice little introduction. Also, I think it would be a really nice thing to own just if you're into feminism. I wish I could show you it because it's like a really nice little edition, like all the little black classics are, but I've already packed it away. Another book which I have unfortunately packed away because it would have been really great to show you guys because I put so many little sticky tabs in it, was The Vagina Monologues by Ensler, and I actually forgot to mention this in my May book haul. As much as I want to put it down to packing, you know you buy too many books when you genuinely forget some of them. I really enjoyed this non-fiction book, and this book basically stemmed from Ensler having interviews and conversations with women about their vaginas. Found a lot of what was in this really intriguing and really interesting. As I said, I put a bunch of sticky tabs on it. Again, another book which I think will definitely be in the bibliography for my dissertation. I didn't relate to all of the things that were in this book, but I guess that's just a matter of having different experiences. I found at points it was kind of a bit too romanticized for me. I think there were attempts made to make this quite intersectional. There were women of colour featured, and there was a particular section where a queer woman was like, no, Eve, it's a very different experience being a lesbian. It's very different how you see vaginas when you are a lesbian. But I really don't think it was as inclusive as it could have been. I really enjoyed this book, but I want to think about it quite critically. I also read How to Be Both by Ali Smith, and as ever with Ali Smith, this was very experimental and literary. This book is about the versatility of art and how we can experience art and create art in so many different ways. The form of this novel kind of borrows techniques from like fresco paintings, and that kind of went over my head a little bit because I don't really know anything about art as in like painting art. There's a section called Eyes and a section called Camera, and in half the editions of the book it's eyes then camera, and in the other half it's camera then eyes, to show that you can experience a story in multiple ways. While I really enjoyed this book, I don't think I experienced it fully. I was away when I was reading it, and it was a very busy kind of holiday, and I don't know if I gave it the attention it deserved. Much like the Polly Clark collection, I think I may reread it when I'm just in my mind's more active. The final and by far the best book that I read in May was The Girls by Emma Cline, and oh my god, I just love this book so much. This book is set in California at the end of the 1960s, and it is about a teenage girl called Evie Boyd. Evie is very bored with her life. Her parents are divorced, and that just makes her life kind of complicated. She's bored by her only like one real friend. She's just very dissatisfied with her life. But in the park one day, she comes across a group of girls who seem so mature and so carefree, and that just draws her in so much. She wants to be part of what these girls are part of. She has a particular kind of growing obsession with one of the girls called Suzanne. Becoming involved with these girls takes a very worrying turn for Evie. Something I really enjoyed about this book was the more adult perspective we get. There are kind of two narratives, the main story and also Evie visiting a old friend's house and his son being there and his son's kind of girlfriend, and they know about the really massive thing that happened in her life when she was a teenager, and just how they kind of dance around that subject. She doesn't really want to talk about it. They really want to know more. She's really reflective and trying to just lie low about her life. I'm not going to say much more about it other than that. I just thought the writing style was so perfect and so captivating and gorgeous. But if you do want to know more of my thoughts on it, then I will leave a link to my full review in the description. I've done a few full reviews for some of the books I've mentioned, so if you want to check any of those out, the links will be in the description. So I read 13 books in May, but a lot of them were very short, and a couple of them I probably didn't devote enough attention and focus to. I'm still really pleased with how my reading month went, considering I was in the middle of exams and I went on quite a busy family holiday. Guess I need to, go finish packing up my life now. That does mean that this is the last video that will be on this very plain backdrop. I don't know what my new setup is going to be. I'm going to have to find somewhere nice in my new flat to film. I'm hoping my new backdrop will be much more aesthetically pleasing.